Good evening, folks. Welcome to this week's Joko conversation. I am Brother Youssef, a member of the Joko. I'm a poet, a local professor, local to Southern California, where we are based. And I'm happy to be joined by my partner and comrade, Tasha. Hi, Tasha.
Hi, Youssef, and greetings, everybody. We always begin or open with forefronting our ancestors and our personal lineages, our lineages as individuals, right? All the people and forces that have guided us and parented us to become folks that are dedicated to supporting and helping and giving our energies to the project of realizing a just world, right? A world that works for everybody. Be stingy, not for most, not for, just what's possible in the discourse of scarcity, but a world that works and being a part of that work. And uh, to counter this 600-year project of creating all of this misery and devastation. Um, right? And we know that our parenting forces and energies have contributed to that. So we forefront those energies. We forefront and bring to mind all of the champions of this cause that are in the African world family that we are a part of, right? Our world lineage, right? Our human lineage, and the folks that have devoted their energies and ingenuities and creativity and courage and all of those things to this project of liberty, peaceful life, uh, happiness, right? And dismantling and um, eliminating, right? The forces and energies of predation and oppression. Uh, and so, as members of the African global family, we always bring those ancestors and uh, workers for that kind of uh, peace and just general human wonderfulness to our forefront. And we'll never forget that any work that we do, any liberatory work we do, any living that we do as people living in Turtle Island, um, we do at the hospitality of the ancestors of the original people of this Turtle Island and of the places that we have lived, moved, and um, had our beingness, and the people who are the descendants of those original people who continue to preserve and uplift their cultural ways, their sovereignty, their proper um, memory, right? And um, are also in this work to bring the much sought after peace and abundance for uh, peace and abundance for the biosphere, right? All the creatures
Mhm.
May all sentient beings be peaceful and happy. Um,
Yes.
right? And so we acknowledge always that it's at the hospitality of those folks. And it's so important in this age of where there's a lot of confusion, to make that statement in this time where there's a lot of confusion about,
Mhm.
and always, in this conversation that um, oftentimes Black folk have about liberation and their own liberation. There's not enough of a conversation about where we're at and where,
Mhm. Mhm.
who, right, whose lands that we are on, and not,
Mhm.
in
Mhm.
practice and in our discourse of liberation, to not participate in the invisibilizing of these original people, to
That's right.
participate, because to not raise it and to not uh, have it current in the consciousness is to,
Mhm.
right, participate
Mhm.
in um, the violent myth that that these people have eliminated the indigenous people, and
Right.
they're no longer here, no longer relevant. They've dwindled down to da 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 da. Regardless of
Mhm.
the effects on population, the folks are here. They're strong. They're vital.
Mhm.
They are doing things. They're making change in their image and interest. And
Mhm.
so we certainly uphold that as African descended people, you know, as
Yes.
children of Africa. So yeah, I have on my land back worldwide. No, not land back worldwide. My land back t-shirt today.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so
Native,
anyway,
what, Native punk, First Nations punk, land
yes,
back.
yes. And it speaks
Yes.
to you, as you can see, indigenous anarchy, and the artist who
Mhm.
designed the t-shirt is Dene and
Mhm.
Vietnamese. And
Mhm.
so she has a series of items, and also
Mhm.
uh, uh, this series of stickers and T-shirts and whatnot with a Dene Punk
Mhm.
sister, and her
Mhm.
land back emblem. Where's the land back emblem? I can't. I see I'm messing up the screen, but there's a little land
See the
back emblem.
word, can
Yeah,
see the
can't see
word
it.
land back, right?
You can see it.
And
Okay.
you can see land back. Yes. Yeah, it was on
Yeah,
screen long enough and enough times for folks to read
that
it.
it was seen. So yeah, probably
And
my favorite.
good image of the woman in the image, right?
Yeah,
That was very
so
clear. So
good.
um, so yes, and that's right.
Right.
That's why we do it, right? It's not performative, land acknowledgement stuff, right? It's political education. It's a
Right.
reminder that the United States is a settler colonial society,
Hmm.
and that exhibits all the pathologies of settler colonial societies, including that toxic myth you reference, that's
Hmm.
uh, so central, and how we're expected to live with illusion and delusion. Um, yeah, the idea that and the often repeated, right, that the Indians were all wiped out, right, and said with some sense of grief or bitterness or whatever, or just how
Hmm.
unfortunate. And again, just completely ignoring that. No, they weren't. Just like people, ignore that. So the southwest of the United States is occupied Mexico, and why is it unusual that Mexicans should be in Mexico? And I always think of it, the analogy of, you know, uh, somehow black indigenous people in South Africa were somehow foreign in South Africa if they were on their homeland, right? And just, this notion, and the way in which the identified, colored community in South Africa was imbibed that point of view, right? That somehow the indigenous are the foreigners, and there's some kind of distinction between them and these other Africans and Afro-Asiatic people. The way, act like somehow Mexicans are foreign, though there's been continuous Mexican, presence in the Southwest since the United States annexed, the Southwest. Not everybody decided to go to the other side of the border, right? They became U.S. citizens and all that, right? So going back to the 1850. But it's still, the Mexican American, right, is still is also a perpetual foreigner in a land that, and again, considering also the indigenous character, right, of the the Mexican American, Chicano,
yes,
and other folks, who are lumped under that term, Latinx and Hispanic, that are indigenous, right? That, and that get disappeared, that indigeneity getting disappeared in those terms. So anyway, since you brought that up, and it's January, it's the beginning of the new calendar year, let's go ahead and call some of the local names of the indigenous people that are still around and thriving. Again, the LA Basin, so much of the San Gabriel Valley into the Inland Empire, the Tongva Quiche, the Tongavar and the Tongva Quiche lands, right? Who leave their mark on land and all of these place names, and especially place names that end in the NGA, like Topanga and Cahuenga and Cucamonga. Right? The Tataviam of North LA County, Ventura County, North LA County, I think maybe a little bit of the San Fernando Valley, right? Tataviam people, and the Chumash, right, of the coast, right, of the Santa Barbara, Ventura County, Santa Barbara County coast. I'm not sure how far north they go beyond Santa Barbara County, but that part of the coast. Do they get up as far as San Luis Obispo? I'm not sure, right? But that, at least at the southern part of the Central Coast or the southern coast. The Kumeyaay of San Diego County and southern parts of California, southern inland. The Serrano, also, that's there. Well, the mountain, the Maringa Tweech speakers, called Serrano, right? Tiranimuk and from Tehachapi and Antelope Valley area. Akachaman, San Bernardino, Orange County, and Riverside, right? The indigenous folks of Southern California. So yeah, in this settler colony, many of whom have Spanish names, because of the processes of colonization, right, by the Spanish first. So anyway, here we are, and not unrelated to what we're talking about, right? Tonight, Project 2025, because I just saw a report of the crisis, right, unfolding in Minneapolis right now and other parts of Minnesota, um, and some First Nations folks, being rounded up, right, and um, this one young woman, reporting that, yeah, we talked to them and we were saying, we're Native American, we're U.S. citizens.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
ICE agent and all of his,
Hubris.
and yes, hubris.
Yes.
Um, yeah, you guys are next, sort of thing.
Right.
You guys
Right.
are next, which again just speaks to the, the white supremacy of it all, right? The ethnic cleansing of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, the ethnic cleansing of it all. Um, that has not been so actually, let me back up a little bit. So yeah, the ethnic cleansing of it all. But what's playing out.
Mhm.
Something that we've been familiar with for decades, and that emerged during and certainly after the civil rights movement, Black Power movement, and all of the other liberatory movements and social transformations of the period of the mid 20th century, particularly the 60s into the 70s and 80s. And
Mhm.
that's resentment, right? The politics of resentment, um, and particularly white male resentment
Yes.
of you know this challenge to the social order, right? To the
Mhm.
traditional social order, and that has certainly animated politics openly, really, since the Reagan counter revolution. Is um, and lean into that, and so now that is like fully weaponized and operationalized
Mhm.
through the Trump regime, whose campaign
Mhm.
all three times, right, play on that resentment. I mean, some of his most recent comments about the harm the Civil Rights Act and civil
Right.
rights movement to white America, right?
Right. Mhm.
Which ain't nothing new, right?
Right.
From him and from
Mhm.
these folks, right?
Yes.
But now that is all fully weaponized,
Mhm.
um, and indeed creating the crises, um, and enjoying, you know, um, the cruelty. As they say, cruelty is the point.
Yeah. The the opportunity to generate that feeling of power, the sense of power,
Mhm,
the
mhm,
that very what the only term that's coming to me, and this is not the term that I want to use, but this is very body based
mhm,
sense of
mhm,
power, you know,
mhm,
because one of the things that is, and in these kinds of assertions that are being made in the all of the, what's called the bluster and saber rattling and all of these things that the administration is described, is doing
mhm,
is,
mhm,
is part of that, that sense of that very uh, crude, or crude isn't exactly the word. All I can say is body based sense
mhm,
you know, of power, the satisfaction of the bully.
mhm,
Bigger than you, I can. But these kinds of
mhm.
things, and it's
Pleasure of it.
also say that again.
The pleasure of it. Right.
The right body based, right? The pleasure
Yes.
of it.
Yeah.
So it translates into
Yeah.
sadism, and it translates into all of that kind of, and that brutality, and that kind of
Mhm,
the
mhm.
bloodlust and all of these
Yes.
kinds of things, satisfying that however it is generated, that sense of powerlessness, some
Mhm.
kind of fundamental sense of powerlessness.
Mhm.
All that being, yeah, all that being the the case, as well as people are also making these criticisms about, or making these commentaries from all around. It's like, this is not, there's no long-term vision here. you know what's the long term? So after rattle your saber and do all these, there's what, uh NATO allies, boots on the ground, coming to Greenland, and this is good. Why? What is this? What are you accomplishing
Right.
here? Um,
Mhm.
Etc. But it's this very body-based, carnal
What yeah,
appeal.
what's being accomplished, like with something like that, right? And the NATO allies have expressed in no uncertain terms, right, their position, whatever the plans for Greenland are. And that can blow up and likely will blow up the NATO alliance. And that is the point, right? That is the point. Again, some of the that is part of the chaos that they're okay with, right? Really an effort to reorganize the world in right-wing, fascist, traditionalist, anti-modernist terms, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which includes dismantling the liberal order.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and NATO was
Mm-hmm.
part of that post-war liberal order.
Mm-hmm.
For a very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and for a very long time expressed in popular culture in the United States, right? There's been a disdain for post-war Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Mm-hmm.
notion of Europe as a drain on the U.S. Treasury,
Mm-hmm.
and a notion, of Europe as a poor example, right, because of its choices to
Mm-hmm.
create the welfare state, um,
Mm-hmm.
and all this, right, and
Mm-hmm.
even you know, so this sort of weird ambivalence, right, this kind of cultivated common man distaste, for Europe, particularly, modern Europe. That
Mm-hmm.
the post Cold War um, slur Eurotrash, right? If you recall that term emerging, um, the disdain for the French, right, and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
while at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
a celebration of the French underground of World War II, and
Mm-hmm.
the European past, right? Yeah, and certainly among certain
Right.
kinds of sectors, right?
Mm-hmm.
All this call to protect the West, right? And
Exactly.
um,
Western civilization. How are you gonna
yeah,
up
yeah.
uplift Western civilization and dismiss Europe at the same time? Weird.
Because Europe has
Right?
forgotten its tradition, right? This sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing, right? That
Mm-hmm.
complaining that
Mm-hmm.
Stephen Miller was doing a few days ago about, the West apologizing for whatever,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
etc. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Again, they're staying for the anti-colonial movement, all
Mm-hmm.
that, right?
Mm-hmm.
How dare you challenge your masters? Um, so all of that, and they've been very methodical about um, starting with the symbolic. And I'm not even sure I can say, say starting, right? It's like all of this kind of symbolic erasure, structural erasure, structural
Mm-hmm.
or dismantling of structures,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and boots on the ground repression, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
an actual enactment of lawfare in these various ways, really all simultaneously,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all that is
Mm-hmm.
clearly ramped up for
Right.
2026. Right? We're two
Right.
weeks in.
Right. And there, I guess there are also are some things that are driving um the driving that ramp up and
Mm-hmm.
these kinds of desperations. Um, the Epstein exposure, yes. The unpopularity of the policies, yes. I think that
Mm-hmm.
um, pressures the power grab. Figuring
Mm-hmm.
out how to, in this, what was it, the Senate almost or Congress almost passed some kind of prohibition and limitation on the administration's warmongering in Venezuela, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Had it not been for the reversal of a couple of Republicans that I think I saw it
Right.
described as quote unquote after quote unquote assurances were offered, right?
Right. Right.
Um, but that
Right. Yeah.
people are responding to their constituents, responding to
Mm-hmm.
their constituents. So um, the even part of this, well, there's been a lot of talk, of course, in the past couple of weeks about the or highlighting the lack of screening, training, whatever of these people that they are employing as ICE agents.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and a, sh- a look at and or a close up on the direct, what becomes more and more the direct kind of calling out the white supremacist truths, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and that that lack of any kind of bureaucratic detail. I mean, that works against them as well. There have been folks who have saying one young woman in particular, whose name, of course, I don't remember, but I think she is a journalist,
Mm-hmm.
and like said, okay, so I did an experiment. Like what if
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
right? This
Mm-hmm.
woman, yeah. What if I apply to become an ICE agent? And she was like, this mess is worse than you think. There was no background check. There was no nothing. Next thing I know, I didn't even complete the process. Next thing I know, they're letting me know I'm hired. And they're
Mm-hmm.
having a conversation with me, and she said, and I know there had to be no background check because I'm no secret on the internet, and my critiques of the administration are no secret. This is, you know what I'm saying? So they're not looking at nothing. Just come on, y'all
Exactly.
come.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now
And
they've talked about uh, uh, wanting folks who are like Trump supporters, have right wing ideology, stuff like that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
yeah, but they need bodies, right? They
they
want
need
bodies,
bodies. Right. For the
and
spectacle.
there are desperate people, right,
Mhm.
who want a job, and it's a
What
government
a
job.
job. Yes.
While all other government jobs, are defamed, etc. But
Right.
not the folks in uniform,
Right.
whatever uniformed agency you're working for.
Right. But that's going to
I'm
be,
looking down.
yeah.
I'm looking down as we talk because I'm, belatedly Instagramming out the fact that we are live on YouTube and Facebook right now.
Okay.
Partly because there was something
We'll get
going
better.
on with, Wi-Fi that it didn't want to load, so now it's
Mm-hmm.
loaded.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting it out. One more account to Instagram, and
Fabulous.
I can stop looking down,
Yeah.
and but I am
But
listening.
crisis and cruelty are the point, and as more and more people are articulating the positive nature of the volatility, in that
Mhm.
the nature of the system is fully exposed, um,
Mhm.
and the conversation can't help but broaden. They're not going to be able to just talk about it being a Trump issue, or a Trump administration issue, this man or this particular group of people, because there's no way to talk about these uh, uh, these people and these policies without talking about white supremacy, Christian nationalism, imperialism, and all. There's no way to have that
Mhm.
conversation. So, as I went to a webinar before our program, and the discussion, a webinar that was about how to resistance strategies, fundamentally kind of these clever economic resistance strategies, and how to look at what people are doing and generate them and
Mhm.
whatnot. And one of the comments that was made, um, one of the comments that was made was that a person said, yeah, a lot of my friends who describe themselves as not political, have been described themselves for not political for years,
Mhm. Mhm.
all hands on deck. What can I do?
Mhm.
What needs to be done? Doing
Mhm.
a whole lot of making up for a whole lot of political education, and a whole lot of, political education,
Yeah.
yeah, education, information, understand,
Yeah.
So, um, people are recognizing the paradigm shift or the opportunity,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
to really be a part of, a paradigm shift, and at least, understanding more and more clearly the nature of what this thing is, and what it's attempting to do. And to
Mhm.
resist it is to resist a whole set of values and principles and alignments, is to resist these things because of I think, because of the heightened violence, the indiscriminate, kind of violence, this whole piece that folks are talking about, um, this shooting of white people, middle class white people, cannot go forward, um, cannot
Mhm.
be supported.
So publicly and so blatantly, yeah.
Cautious, yes, doing what they're doing, authoritarian. I think you dropped, not totally.
We both keep, keep seeing these flashes on either a box of, the spin. It's like in and out, but I mean, here's the thing. Here, the way in which, at least this week, I know for me, winter intercession that we have.
Say that again.
Um,
At least for me. Go
I,
back to at least for me.
this week, and a couple
Mhm.
of my students, we're all having Wi-Fi issues, right? And yeah, and I think that's happening now, right? With what
Yeah.
we're as we're going in and out, or at least, and I don't know, you know, why I don't know why. I know you mentioned was it yesterday that and I think it was yesterday, right? That the Village Well was having
Mhm.
difficulty with Wi-Fi, and I
Yeah.
think it's the same company, I believe, who's saying they'll
Yeah.
not stay. You
Mhm.
don't get paid for
Mm.
advertising, so
Mhm.
But it's interestingly, and again, one of some insight from another one of my students about the stress that is being put on the grid. Um, all grid. I guess stress is being put on the cloud. I don't know, but from these data centers though.
Yeah.
And it's unusual.
Yeah.
There have been days like this before. It's been a while, and it's
Mhm.
unusual now, and it doesn't seem quite the same. Anyway, we'll see.
Mhm.
How it go as we go forward
Yeah.
with it. But
Yeah. Yeah.
this has been the plan 60 years,
Mhm.
really even longer.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
it's that's a scholar we both enjoy. I think his new book is out now, so I'm looking forward to getting it. Tad Turner, and
Mm.
a resistance history of the United States.
Mhm.
And he makes that point, right? That the world that they're trying to recreate is
Mhm.
the first republic of the United States, right?
Mhm.
That white
Mhm.
supremacist state
Mhm.
that was
Mhm.
committed to the word hadn't been invented yet, but the genocide of the indigenous population, removal of the
Mhm.
indigenous population,
Mhm.
um, and the enslavement of African peoples.
Mhm.
Anyone they decided to deem African because you're going to be enslaved. The
Mhm.
and that and then
Mhm.
again within that white ethnic state hierarchy, right? Patriarchal hierarchy. And
Mhm.
we have a romantic notion
Mhm.
of the Confederate flag doesn't represent hate or whatever. It's a way of life. Well, what
Right.
was the way of life? Can
Right.
we get some specifics here? What was the way of life? Right?
Yeah.
And again, this patriarchal, paternalistic,
Yeah.
in its own way, neo-feudal, right?
Absolutely. Mhm.
That doesn't really capture neo-feudal in the way. I'm using that in terms of the kind of social order, right? The aristocratic social
Mhm.
order. But
Mhm.
it's in a sense,
Mhm.
well, it isn't feudal, right? It's a return to the Roman model, right? The idea of the republic.
Mhm.
And there were republics between Rome and the United States and France. The Venetian Republic, but that
Mhm.
too, right? There was a senatorial class, right? This strict class structure, and that's
Mhm.
what they're wanting to create again. And I'm saying recreate, but that's not even fully accurate because it's a fantasy that they're trying to create based on what they think the past is, from the narrative that Hollywood has created, in effect, right?
Mhm.
That popular
Mhm.
culture has created about the past. And everybody thinks if they lived in a medieval period, they would have been
Mhm.
a noble, right?
Mhm.
And not some
Mhm.
peasant.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's part of
Mhm.
the beauty, the brilliance of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, right?
And the Holy Grail. Mhm.
It's romanticized, right? It de-romanticizes the Middle
Yes.
Ages and King
Yes.
Arthur's court and all that, right?
Right. Oh, now we see the violence inherent in the system. Oh, did you see that? That was one of my favorite scenes. Oh,
Yes,
I'm just a peasant. That
exactly.
was, yeah, Holy Grail was great. Yeah.
Yeah. But this is it, right? Again, we talked about Project 2025. It's in the title, but this is the plan, right? All the
Yeah.
various, you know, uh, um,
Iteration. Mhm.
sectors, constituencies that make up, this right wing, this fascist movement.
Yeah.
The hardcore right wing Catholics, want to go back to the Latin mass and only the Latin mass. I mean, all of this, retrograde activity, right? Right.
Mhm.
These particular evangelicals, and then among the fundamentalist evangelicals, you got various different sectors, the charismatics, and the
Yeah,
dominionists, and all this, and
yeah, yeah,
you know, and the tech
yeah.
bros, right? And the techno fascists, and the neoconservatives and the neoliberals, right?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Right. And the neo-feudals.
The
So,
neo-feudals.
and they're cut from the same cloth. Cut from the same cloth.
Mm-hmm.
Concentrate.
And it's
Hmm.
well, and both at home and abroad, right? Both
Mm-hmm.
reestablishing
Mm-hmm.
of like a 19th century style
Mm-hmm.
imperial order on the world,
Mm-hmm.
with emphasis on the Western hemispheres, they keep saying,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and a re-domesticating of everybody at home,
Right. Right.
including within their own homes.
Right. Right. So include right, absolutely. Um, so I do not wish I do not wish them luck. But it's let's say it's quite an
Yeah,
ambitious endeavor. But
it
again,
is.
as you said, that they've been working at systematically for as long as they've needed to, as long as there have been these
Mm-hmm.
the grand uprisings, you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
of what would it be basically the 19th and 20th centuries, the
Mm-hmm.
grand
Yeah.
uprisings
Yep.
of these
Indeed.
all over
Indeed.
the world.
In some
And
ways, even the late 18th century.
okay, right.
I
I
mean,
can see that. Yes. Right.
as
Right.
people
But just
point
in
out,
terms of
this dude is acting like King George, right?
right,
And the French
right,
aristocracy, right? So,
right. In terms of that, right. The ideological, there's these components which for me all resolve
mm-hmm,
down to a culture of, a way of
mm-hmm,
being on the planet, you know.
mm-hmm.
Um and just really this if it wasn't King George the mad one, the madness of King George, wasn't he the mad one?
Mm-hmm.
Um
Mm-hmm.
the madness of whatever that's due to. That's not a real reference, but I'm really just talking about the
But it is a real
madness.
reference. Right? That was a movie, right? Remember? Not that long ago. The Madness of King George.
Yeah. Um but the madness of this notion that it's realizable,
Right.
that everything's just going to bend to their will, and everything is just going to revert into, so
Right.
an interesting piece. So yeah, crisis and cruelty
And what do we
are the
see?
point,
They
huh?
they hit resistance at every point,
Yeah,
right? As they
yeah,
think things are into their will, and they create their narrative of victory, they hit resistance at every point.
and believe their own press. Too many will believe their own press, and then as they, kind of the necessary deceptions of the boots on the ground, the
Mm-hmm.
followers, the folks that are
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be, as they become disillusioned, and start coming up against that resistance
Mm-hmm.
and feel less invincible, you know, um, that's also, that's also destabilizing. So, yeah, the need
Yeah.
for the crises, for economic crisis, for people to be in a state of desperation and disarray
Mm-hmm.
and not
Mm-hmm.
knowing what end is up, or where do I go to do this now? What do I do? How do I do, just
Exactly.
all of the madness of that and the
Mm-hmm.
um, the psychological impact, you know, and then the showing up, you know, as the bully, you know, all meant to corral and subdue and whatnot. And as people, um, I would say I would look forward, you know, that as people understand that more and more, understand the dynamics more and more, you know, the more and more they'll have these made up minds, you know, like, no, not, I'm not cooperating, I'm not cowering, I'm not, you know, I'm not going the way of the um, fabled German public ignoring
Right.
the crematoria, you know.
Right.
So, you know, and there's a lot of ways that people are just doing the most creative ways to muck up, you know, to muck up the machinery. The something that I looked at today in my scroll time, there was, and I believe this, I think this was in Michigan. It may not have been, but basically this cycling club, I believe it was a club that was already formed, or it may have been a group of activists who said, this is what we're going to do. And what they did was cycle all over their city to buy up the products of that people were bringing out, right? That people bring out to sell on the street corners, right?
Right.
Tamales and flowers and fruit and whatnot. So they, right, bought up all the stuff so that the people could go home to safety and not income.
Yeah.
Right. And
Was
so
that
it was
again?
quite, I think it was I want to say Michigan, but I'm really not sure. It may have been um I'm really not sure. I don't remember that, you know. I just remember, wow, you know, how creative and how um what is the word? How slick, you know, also how slick, you know, um, because you also to attack that kind of resistance and also like the Home Depot resistances, you know,
Right.
and as they're planning, you know, activists are planning other similar kinds of resistances, you know, trying to the mutual aid networks, big resistance element to break those kinds of things up, which is why they also are trying to push and paint everything with the left liberatic, what is it, lunatic, liberal, you know, whatever.
Yeah, radical left, right? Everything's radical
Right,
left and
right.
a
And
domestic
lunacy,
terrorist, right? And
right. But you have to
and
really,
that domestic terrorism language is dangerous, right? You know, because that can
oh
give them
yeah,
legal
it gives,
precedent,
right, right.
you
All
know,
of
to
the
use
things,
that
all of the,
language.
yep, yep. And looking
And
for,
those creative ways of mucking up the system, right? And
yeah,
yeah, and there have been calls for increased boycotting of complicit
yes,
um,
yes,
corporations and you
yes,
know, more and more talk of withholding our work, right? More and more talk
right,
of strikes and general strikes. Um,
right.
but all of these forms of resistance are really important because they are disallowing the pretext that they're looking for.
Exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
you know, what is it? To evoke or invoke the Insurrection Act.
Exactly.
Get,
They're
you know, the
attacking the
military
officers.
in the
Exactly.
street. That was militarized
Right
police
off the
force,
street.
right, which is
Right.
acting
Right.
as you know, personal Gestapo.
Right.
But you know, they're waiting for that pretext, right? They're waiting for that pretext. Um, you know, there are commentators, Elie Mystal, for one, right, who, in terms of their frustration, right, they're
Mhm.
waiting for the big, you know, black,
Mhm.
demonstration or
Mhm.
folks in the street, right?
Mhm.
That we
Mhm.
haven't given, right? That folks are giving them.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so
Yes.
folks are for more than a year now, right? Folks have
Mhm.
been showing, a necessary restraint.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
they're bringing people to the brink, right? As we
Yes.
all saw content on folks who are saying it's getting to that point, right, where
Yes.
citizens have to arm themselves to protect themselves from the federal
Yeah.
government. The same
Yeah.
language, the very language
It's Second
that
Amendment language.
the radical right, Second Amendment, right wing, conservatism almost, generally
Mhm.
distrust of the government.
Mhm.
Now that it's coming to fruition, they're the ones doing it. They're either on board or they're the ones doing it.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so there's a lot of
Of
silence
course.
from those
Yeah.
sectors now that the government actually is jackbooting around the country in these cities
Yeah.
that are hated, despite them very much being the economic engines of the
Right.
country, the source of all the things that people love to enjoy in popular culture,
Yeah.
consumption.
Yeah.
But part of what they consume, why they should hate these places and the people
Yeah.
in them, because they are not the
Yeah.
real America. They are not the
Right.
heartland, right? They are not the
Right.
real America. They are not the real Missouri, the real Illinois, right? The real
Mhm.
California,
Mhm.
all these.
Mhm.
Um, so again, from the very beginning,
Mhm.
a year ago, right, as we're coming up on, and I'm wondering when is this fool supposed to do the State of the Union, which is just a
Mhm.
freaking mess.
Mhm.
Although we already know it's the greatest it's
Yeah.
ever been. We already know
Greatest ever been. Jobs are up. No
right?
inflation. I brought peace. So we know what that's
Oh
gonna
my God.
be.
So all this, right? Uh,
Yeah.
it's about a year where immediately, right,
Mhm.
they start the clamp down on any kind of uh, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs.
Mhm.
So this weaponized and barely disguised versions of anti-blackness, right?
Mhm.
The erasure of histories, right? The pulling down of plaques
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and then the removal of people in positions, and the closing of these agencies, the gutting of
Yeah.
these agencies through Doge. That
Yeah.
creates, that sets up that condition we were talking about. That now, where do I go when I need this? Why is nobody answering my phone call when I call,
Social
the Social Security
Security. Yeah.
Administration, et cetera,
Right.
right? So
Mhm.
again, all this is they've been methodical about it, right?
Mhm.
Everything all at once, but not really haphazardly, right? This aggressive dismantling, right?
Mhm.
That again, as we come into this year, they're ramping up, right? So, what is the regime's response to the resistance in Minneapolis, the murder of this poet Renee Nicole Wood,
Mhm.
this citizen, right? This
Mhm.
mother dropping off her children, clearly
Mhm.
turning her wheel
Mhm.
away from
Mhm.
officers.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
they send more, right? They
Yeah.
they do
Yeah.
what's his name did, right? In the during the Vietnam War, right? Johnson, right? He escalates, right? He sends more troops to Vietnam,
Right.
and this is they're loving it, right? This is what
Yeah.
they've been wanting, like you were saying. They're
So
it's like
this
in the body.
yeah. So much so, can't really think straight. But if and as people retreat from the in the street protest to these other kinds of in the house protests, that reduces the opportunity. They'd be reduced to having to claim obstructing, you're
Mhm.
obstructing, you know, if people start giving people shelter, or, that kind
Mhm.
of
Mhm.
work, then, because as they've started their door-to-door campaign, and and of
Exactly.
course people are talking about, of course you heard about Diary of Anne Frank, hear about the Frank family,
Mhm.
and the, what I'm saying, and
Mhm.
who was it, Meep and Crawler and what have you, the what was her name, but anyway, the family that, or the
Mhm.
folks that hid the
Mhm.
Frank family,
Mhm.
and just, speaking to Underground Railroad type
Mhm.
activities and all those kinds of things, and beginning to set
Yes.
up those kinds of networks. So um, that's what the that's what it will, have to become, which is a lot harder to uh, it's a lot. It reduces the chaos. It reduces the opportunity to,
Mhm.
you know,
Exactly.
it absolutely does. It doesn't eliminate, but it reduces. And
Yeah,
there
it
is
frustrates their efforts.
to step off this insurrection, which is what they really want, or with
Which is
something
what
they
they
can call
really
an
want. Exactly.
insurrection. Anything they can call an insurrection, and they just
Exactly.
lie freely. They just
Mhm.
lie freely.
Mhm.
Literally, this I was watching Vance's uh presentation of the video that everybody's now, everybody's seeing this video, and so they make a spectacle in the presentation, and it's so smoke and mirrors. It's so um
Mhm.
you see it? Do you see it? It's like, no, we see what we just saw,
Right.
but
Right.
I'm going to tell you
Exactly.
what to see, and I
Right.
watched
Right.
this presentation of the video that has been circulating from the officers' POV, from their camera, and I know they're
Mhm.
livid that that's in circulation, and he goes to explain. So clearly, you hear the crunch. What are you still trying to run? The man was run over, and so they're also circulating this. Oh, he had internal bleeding, and so it occurred to me, can a bruise be described as internal bleeding?
That
A
is what a
bruise
bruise is.
isn't that a bruise?
That's what a
Please
bruise
separate
is. Yes,
internal bleeding.
exactly. You just
You
hopefully it's
know,
not so deep, right? But yes.
yes,
And
whatever.
yeah, I guess, right?
Well,
Because the
clearly,
again, man showed he had no limp or
no,
anything, right?
no. So whatever the internal bleeding was, however he was bruised, you know, uh, clearly we can see those who will. You mean you have to be really
Yeah,
willfully ignorant
yeah,
to look and see, like, but hey,
yeah. No,
we're willfully
exactly,
ignorant.
exactly. You are ignoring the evidence of your eyes,
Evidence of your eyes. But again,
and
the
they thought that that particular footage was some kind of flex. It ain't. It's
no,
not,
it's not. It's proving the point.
it
It
proves
proves
the
the
point,
point. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't
but it doesn't
matter
matter
because
because it's the best
the
they got.
say it again.
It's the best they got, which is nothing.
It doesn't matter what it shows, and what you see. It doesn't matter, and they understand, and they're working to death the nature of that propaganda. Repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. I'm telling you what to see, because they know that all people who want to be in league with them need is some kind of justification to latch on to and repeat,
Right.
and just that
Exactly.
under that thin cover, because the cover is becoming thinner and thinner, in terms of, as I think, grow more desperate in a lot of areas, and for a lot of
Mhm.
reasons, to consolidate this thing,
Mhm.
so they're pulling out all the stops,
Yeah.
and
certainly
what
before
the
the
heck, something
midterms.
else, huh?
Certainly trying to consolidate as much as they can before the midterms, and maybe
Before the
even
midterms,
if
right? And
possible.
what I saw something about something, I don't know whose channel it was, but and I didn't look at it. I haven't looked at it yet. But about he's talking about canceling elections because
Yeah,
insurrection, wartime, what the
and
fuck
all that.
ever,
Exactly. I mean,
whatever.
this is why you flood now.
Yeah, that's here it is.
Mm.
You uh now was the last thing I heard. Up, okay. You've kind of gone out. Well, while you're out, I'll go ahead and talk about this as folk will be aware of. And if you're not aware of it, then let us make you aware of it here as folks are calling for January 23rd. I don't know if there's a central kind of organization or something that's promoting this, but I'm hearing from, various places the January 23rd is the no work, no school, no buying day. So yeah, do it. No work, no school, no buying on the 23rd. That's next week, Friday. So, right on, right? Right on with that. And let's give our good brother Yusuf, our dear Yusuf, a minute to get back on. Um, and if he isn't able to catch another signal, then I will do and do the wrap up and good night. But as we're facing this and uh, building up more and more courage and knowledge and um, readiness uh, to deal, with this with the repression, as we are um, doing that work, the understanding that that is in fact what we're doing, and that we are in a long line of people from all the world families, uh, of resistance to this kind of repression, right? I uplift us. I celebrate us. I know that we are going to reach the goal. I know that we are going to reach the goal. And let this be one more step and one more period, this period of resistance and tussling back and forth and battle and uh, let us deal wisely, let us be wise, and keep ourselves and our neighbors safe and remain uplifted, right? Because we're going to get through it just like we've been getting through it for hundreds of years and continuing to take down this monster of oppression, repression, extraction, all of that, taking it down a piece at a time, and sometimes in big hunks, right? But we're on the way. We're on the way. Okay, good people. And with that, I will wish us a good night and a great tomorrow. Learn something else. Find another way to resist. Find your breath and your joy, and know that we're rocking it. Okay? And I thank you. Good night.